happy ad week. I hope you're all having a really good time and getting a lot out of these sessions. That last session I found really interesting, so hopefully you'll enjoy this just as much. Today we're going to talk about women in leadership, and with me I have Sukhmani, who is Vice President of the Display Division, Marketing and Partnerships. And Sukh, why don't you tell you a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Hey, everyone. I'm Sukhmani Mohta. I go by Sukh as well. So I head marketing for Samsung's display team, which really is consumer marketing, B2B marketing, sports marketing, ops, marketing operations, PR, digital, social, really everything connected to marketing for this division is part of my team.
Excellent. So before we get into this, I have to ask a really personal question. So what is on your For You feed?
Oh, wow, we're getting really personal. Let me think if I can come up with something intelligent. No, it's all stuff like a penguin or someone walking. I don't even know what the genre of these videos is, and says, I'm bored, and at least I have a husband I can go irritate. So I don't know, I don't even know what you would call those videos. I have a lot of those. I have a lot of dog videos, which, you know, your dog versus my dog. Your dog is like somersaulting 40 times. My dog is under the bed sheet. I do have some workout videos, like workout, healthy eating. So I feel like even though I don't get to do a lot of it during the day, I feel mentally, I kind of checked it by watching some of those videos. So
excellent.
I would say a lot of that.
Exercise via TikTok.
Yes,
I like that.
Exactly,
I like that.
Exactly.
I have to admit, mine is full of cat videos. I am that person. Yes, I have a million cat videos and cleaning hacks. Ooh. I can spend all day watching somebody else scrub a bathtub. It is really sort of fascinating. But, you know, it is what brings me joy and sort of what lifts me up in the middle of the day or at the end of the day. And so I think it's really fascinating how people take those moments for self-care and self-reflection.
Sounds more productive than mine, Emily.
Okay, so we'll get to the topic at hand, marketing. And being a leader in a marketing space that is really evolving and evolving so quickly. And how you think about leading teams through this evolution as the funnel collapses upon itself, as end-to-end marketing becomes more complicated, faster, more needing of content and structure and strategy. How are you thinking about leading your teams at Samsung through sort of this marketing evolution as it spins around us really quickly?
Yeah, that's a good question. So from a Samsung perspective, brand building continues to be important, right? We are the number 5th brand in the world. We focus that on globally as well as within the US, as well as we take our new products to market. But in addition to brand building, to the point that you were making, is the buying behavior is really dynamic today. Even though my team gently likes to remind me I'm a geriatric millennial, but even for someone like me, like I would probably make decisions within 5 minutes from becoming aware of a product to actually buying. I'm not a big shopper. So if someone like me is looking at from awareness to buying within 5 minutes at the same time, 50% of our consumers are Gen Z. So that behavior is even more compounded. So as we look at our strategies, what we're doing, and we're in the process of planning for 2025, one thing we do really well at Samsung is innovate. So it's not just innovation in terms of the products that we're bringing to market, but innovating in every sense of the word, which is how we go to market, our marketing strategies, our sales strategies. So we're in the process of re-looking at what do we take down and build again. And the way we do that is, which is very ingrained in our culture, is we don't talk about the successes. We look at areas of improvement, areas that we didn't do well. So as we're talking about some of these strategies and what we need to do, we've literally brought in a number of our consumers, mapped out their journey depending on different consumers, where they are in the different parts of their buying cycle, and then looked at each point of where we're not doing well. So whether it's about how we're showing up in social platforms and the content we're producing, if it's relevant enough, is it authentic enough? Whether it's forums, how are we showing up in forums? How are people talking about our products? Whether it's about media, it's the best of reviews, or whether it's tech reviews. So our process right now, and as we're building and evaluating what we need to do for 2025, we're literally looking at each of those areas and what we need to do to rebuild or maybe refocus as we move into 2025.
Interesting. And the thing about sort of authenticity and meeting your consumer where they are versus trying to get your consumer to follow the behavior you would like them sort of rings really true with me. We spend a lot of time talking about how we're going to really embrace and think about the creator society and where creators fit in our overall platform and our strategies. How do you think about creators as they have sort of evolved and quite quickly over the past 4 years from sort of paid spokespeople to really an intricate part of your marketing cycle?
Yeah. I love that question because I've had the opportunity to work with some really great creators, build some amazing content with them, and it served its purpose. But again, as we were looking at evaluating, I was talking a little bit about what we're not doing enough of. We've been overly reliant on brand content and creator content, but it's creators that we bring in. We had this really elaborate 4-tier creator strategy, right? We have our ambassadors, the mega creators, the macro creators, and then we want to build our community as well. So we have a lot of micro and nano creators. However, like I said, there's an over-reliance on that content, and that content has a purpose, but there is other component that we've ignored, which is UGC. And really, we go back and forth. In terms of UGC, we just haven't used it or leveraged it enough as much as we need to, especially for some of our product categories that rely on authenticity and the content that they're producing. So gaming, for example, is a really good reference there. So as we look at 2025 and our creator strategy is how do we look at a better mix of content that we're creating, that our creators and ambassadors are creating, but also that our fans are creating, people who love our technology are creating. And so that's what we need to do more of.
Interesting. And so really relying on sort of the creator community in addition to paid innovation that you're working with creators on. I know a lot of brands also struggle with that feeling of authenticity with creators. So getting that right balance between what the brand wants to say and how the creator wants to say it can often be a real challenge for brands. Yeah. Have you been working through that particular piece of it as well?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we've seen is, yes, we have year-long engagements, maybe longer-term ambassadors, but we also look at one-off activations, right? We'll bring in, if we have a big launch, we'll bring in creators for that one launch event. And it's something that you've all seen, right? We'll have a creator who will produce content that will be absolutely amazing, but the very next week, they've moved on to something else. And so, we're talking about that authenticity, that connection, and even as someone who is part of the brand, when I see that it's not a great feeling in terms of, well, there really is no authenticity related to the fact that speak to one product and how great it is, and the very next week move on to maybe a competitive product. So I think to that point, we really need to evaluate how we engage with some of the creators.
Yeah, it's a really tough question that I feel like a lot of brands struggle with as you think about moving into a creator society and a creator universe where UGC is so important, where authentic voices become a huge part of what you're struggling with. Finding that right balance between people who are going to be part of your brand family, so really intricate and integrated into that, and then other people are going to come in and out and talk about innovation and product launch and maybe not necessarily be fully integrated into the year-long messaging.
Right, and also how do you use some of this content, right? For us, we know that when we've used UGC in our CRM, using our first-party data and having segmentation and content segmented for the right audience, we've seen our metrics increase over 30%. So we know it works better than some of the other content that we've used. We just need to figure out, to the point you were making, what's that right balance of how you use it.
And I know a part of your world also revolves around partnerships, right? So there is a marketing piece that is in traditional marketing and new digital marketing forms, but there's also a partnerships piece, so really where you get the opportunity to really surround a consumer and give them an experience. How does that play in with all of the other content and all of the other marketing levers that you're working with?
Yeah, and I think for us there are maybe multiple partnerships, and partnerships can mean different things to different people. I'll give you 2 examples of how we partner with other companies, organizations, etc. One is that we look at who are our complementers and who can we really partner with to tell a good story together where it helps and benefits the consumer, depending on how the consumer is going to buy our products. So we do a lot of those partnerships. For example, Logitech is one example, right? So they're a complementer to our gaming components, our gaming monitors. So we've partnered together, which helps us exponentially increase our reach our influencers, the content we're creating, the events we're showing up at, the media we're doing together, and in addition to that, also first-party data. We also have integration in terms of how we can do co-CRM, so we're able to reach a much wider audience. The second kind of partnership is maybe sports partnerships. So sports partnerships are a really great way for us to showcase what we're doing at a really large scale, and then be able to show how you can bring that power down to the palm of your hand or the screen that's in front of you. For a lack of better words, it's like our fashion show, to be able to showcase what we're capable of doing, and then be able to, how that applies to you, do activations on how that applies to you. Let me give you an example, Formula One. They'd come to us to say, we want this giant screen on top of their Paddock Club in Las Vegas, which is their logo, F1, and we want the sign to be so bright that we want it to be seen from space. Right? That was the assignment. And so how do we kind of look at that and say, okay, we will do that, we'll build that product, but then look at activations that we can do on site to be able to showcase, one, what we've done there, but also then to be able to bring in other lines of businesses, whether it's our mobile or TV or home appliances, and how we are able to show the power of our ecosystem throughout during an event like that. The Met Stadium here is a really good example. But one of my passion projects, Emily, is the CPKC Stadium. I don't know, does anyone know about that? The Kansas City Current, right? So they came to us and said, it's the world's first professional women's sports stadium. Like in the world, it's the first, and it was just an incredible opportunity. And not just the fact that they wanted to create a stadium and wanted to outfit it with the latest technology, but the values that they stood for, really resonated with us, and something we wanted to work with them. Sustainability, diversity, inclusion. And so that was really exciting. And that project was led by women through and through, whether it was the design, the build, the technology elements of it. The head of sales, who unfortunately couldn't join me today, Sarah Grafchik, she's in Florida. My thoughts are with her, making sure everyone's safe there. She was the one who was leading the conversation from the Samsung side as well. So I think it just was such a great way to bring together technology and what they were looking to do in terms of an engaging fan experience. So that's the kind of partnerships we like to do.
And I think that's really interesting, this idea of women-led for women's sports, for really actually putting sort of your money where your mouth is, almost, right? Finding partnerships that do good for a brand and also support causes that you really firmly believe in. It's a really interesting intersection of marketing and pro-social causes at the moment. And really thinking about funding, right? Because we all believe that women's sports is engaging, that women's soccer is something that, has a huge potential and a huge following, but if they don't have support, then there isn't an opportunity to thrive. So I think that idea of really funding and making sure you are backing causes that you believe in is really important.
Absolutely.
So 2024, we shouldn't be having this particular panel, right? Women in leadership should be a given, not an exception or a rarity. And yet, here we are. It's still something of a rarity to find a woman in your position of leadership, really taking the helm and making the hard decisions, and especially in tech, where we have been a little bit slower to grow in the upper echelons of the corporate ladders, and it has been a bit of a recent event where we start seeing so many amazing, powerful women in leadership roles. What does it mean to you personally, this idea of women in leadership, and how do you think about representing that within your company?
Yeah, and Emily, I love the word that you said. For me, it is about that. It's about representation, of ensuring we have representation at every level, including the leadership levels, because that's where some of the decisions are being made, which impact a lot of us. So how do we make sure we're part of the decision-making about the culture that we're going to be in, the investments that we're going to make, the growth areas that we're identifying, and so to ensure that we have a voice and be able to represent that. And I think it's also important, let me give you an example of how that really comes to life. Someone on my team wants to move forward, and one of the areas she wants to work on is executive presence. And how do you ensure we have budgets put in place to make sure that we have funding for events, for programs like that, to be able to ensure that they have the opportunity to do that. So that's what it means to me, is to be able to represent and to be able to make effective changes.
Yeah, I so agree. And I think, there's a lot of self-imposed pressure of being a woman in the room where it happens, right? It's showcasing confidence, having a voice, feeling like you can articulate a POV without necessarily feeling threatened by that or threatening in a room. And it doesn't happen by accident. Your point about having budgets and training, all of that is something that really is very calculated, and you have to design your career. How have you thought about, for folks in the audience, any hacks, any tips, things that you've thought about as you've sort of designed your path through your career?
Well, my path has been, I guess everyone's path is kind of unique. My path has been, well, I moved to the US when I was 24. So I came here for business school, decided to go from a really hot city in India, New Delhi, 110 degrees, beautiful weather, to Ithaca, New York. Opened the door, 3 feet of snow. I'm tiny, half covered in snow. And then I wanted to be in brand marketing, but as an international student, you don't get opportunities in consumer marketing. So I went back to what I knew, which was B2B marketing. And after that, I had to move back to India to convince my family to let me marry my now husband. Took 5 years, so clearly not a good negotiator. And then finally moved back here and had to take a break from work because I was waiting for my papers to get processed. And then when I found a job, I had to I lost 10 years of my career. I had to start from scratch. So I joined Samsung at a level that I was at right out of business school. So I was really aggressive and ambitious about where I wanted to go. So in the past 7.5 years, every year and a half, I've moved and progressed and to the point that you're saying what, it was because one, I was never shy to ask. I think that was the biggest thing that I kept doing, is asking. I've seen a lot of people, even within my teams, they don't ask. If you don't ask, how will you get it? And what's the worst that can happen? It's a no, right? But at least you asked. So I would always ask. I would always have backup. So it would always be documentation, either to say how my role has changed from when I first joined to the end of the year, whether it's increase in scope, or two, another opportunity, whether within Samsung or outside, that was willing to give me an opportunity higher than where I was. So I think those two things really help. The third thing I always do, and I continue to do, don't tell my boss, is I always document everything, which is in terms of if I present to the CEO and the CEO says, Sukh, that was really good, thank you for doing this, I will document that. So anything that I get in terms of really good job, you did really well here, you really helped us break through, I continue to pull that together because that really helps me with end of year conversations. And then the other thing, and of course I'm saying all of this with the backup that I do believe in right time, right place, divine grace, luck, whatever you want to call it, right? There is an element of that. The other thing I think is really important is having a board of directors. Is who do you go to for different things? I have one person that clearly we've established I'm not good at negotiating. So who do I go to when I have to negotiate my salary? Who do I go to when I have to negotiate a partnership? Who do I go to when I'm in a difficult situation? Who do I go to when I'm in a room but I'm not able to voice my opinion or my opinion is not being heard? So I have different people that I go to for different things that are important in my career. And then the last thing that I absolutely hate, but is so important, is networking. And it's not the kind of networking, you define what networking means for you, right? So for me, it's about reaching out to people within the company and outside that I know I want to either learn more, I want to learn more about either the industry or the role, or something that's just a passion project for me. So, figure out what works for you and what's easy. So I think those are some of the things that have helped me.
Wow, amazing. There's so much to unpack in there. But I think the idea of consciously taking control and asking for what you want is truly powerful. And this other thing that you mentioned, this idea of building sort of a network of people around you who can help you get done what you need to get done, that it doesn't have to all be you, that sometimes this is about the team that you put around you that makes things possible.
Yeah, I mean, when I first took on the role, even within Samsung, I was only B2B marketing, and then I had to move over to consumer marketing. And it was a senior level role, and I was like, I don't know consumer marketing, I've never done it. Like, I learned about it, but I've never done it. So reaching out to some people within on the other side or different divisions to say, give me a 101, like, what am I doing here? And so just being able to jump in there, figure it out, and you have to ask for help when you need it.
And in the moment that we sit with RTO being a hot topic, and this idea of being in real life in the office as a way to create those kind of networks and build that kind of team, how are you leading yours through that transition?
Okay, so for me, and again, I'm speaking for myself, not for the company overall, but I would say, for me, two things are really important, and they have been throughout my career, and I've been lucky enough to have managers that also have supported that. Health, family, those two things come first. Everything else is secondary. If that is the case, and if that's my guiding principle, how do I ensure that I support my team? So yes, RTO is important, and I see the benefits of it in terms of bringing our teams together, collaboration, all of that. But how do you ensure that you're able to support everyone within your team and ensure that they have room to be able to have some flexibility? So whether it's inclusion within decision makings, 2025 planning, whatever we are doing, how do you ensure it's a more inclusive environment, whether it's through video conferencing, whether it's through if they need additional support after the meeting, especially for remote people who are remote for those days. I think those things are really important. So ensuring how you can build in flexibility, at least that's something that I look at.
And building a team where people feel they have a voice and feel that they have the right to speak up and are encouraged to do so is something of an art.
I love that. So when I actually first joined Samsung, I was really quiet. It took me so much effort to even come sit on stage like this. And so I remember and I love what you said, Emily, because one of my managers, and I thought she changed the course of my life in a way, because in a room where everyone would be giving their opinions, and there are so many opinions, and I would probably sit back, she would go person by person to say, what do you think? But what do you think? So to ensure that everybody's voice was heard, and I think that's such a great and something that I've incorporated with my team, whether remote or in person, ensuring everyone has a chance to voice their opinion.
Yeah. And we talk a lot at these types of events about mentorship, but often it's really about sponsorship. It is about that manager, right, who goes around the room and says, I want to hear from you. Your voice matters. How have you, throughout your career, been blessed with those kinds of sponsors or mentors, if you would? And what do you think is the role of mentorship in sort of a day-to-day leadership role?
Yeah. And I'm blessed because I've seen both sides. I've been a mentor, I've been a mentee, and I've had a support of a sponsor, and I've been a sponsor. And in all of those, I think it's critical. The sponsor, to me, is critical in your career, right? Because the sponsor is not a mentor. Mentor is helping you. Here are my issues, here are my problems. How do you help guide me in what way I should be able to chart my career and give me some help and advice? A sponsor is someone who will champion you when you're not there, especially in leadership positions, people who are having discussions around who should be the right person for this role and things like that. I remember this one meeting, and it wasn't a good meeting. I went in, and it was with our CEO at that time, and it was a rough meeting. Like, it was rough. And I came out, and I was like, oh, that was really rough. And my leader at that time came up to me and looked me in the eyes and said, don't even think about it. It was a bad meeting, but it's not who you are. It's just shake it off, and we'll come back tomorrow, and we'll get it done. And so to be able to have that kind of support and a sponsor like that who would then go back in the room and say, that wasn't her best day, she's going to be back, and you'll see that it'll be a whole nother day. So to be able to have people like that and then be that person for other people, I think that's really rewarding.
Okay, last question. So we are, I think, right spot on time. How are you thinking about paying this forward, right? We all work in jobs and careers with a lot of Gen Zs and Gen Ys and young, smart, talented, eager people who we want to see succeed. I personally think the best part of being a leader is looking all around me, not just in my company, but in companies I've worked with, in other companies, all these people who I got to touch their careers and got to help them find that next place. That's, to me, the best thing in my job. How are you paying it forward? How are you working with the next generation to make sure that there are other female leaders who are going to sit on this stage in 10 years?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it's something so important to me because I've been on the receiving end of it. Even the job within Samsung I got because I reached out to an alumni because I wasn't getting a job for 3-4 months when I was trying to re-enter the US workforce, and it was so hard. And so the only way I got an entry is I reached out to an alumni and said, hey, from your business school, any chance you will have a 5-minute conversation? And so I'm super focused on especially not just women, yes, but also students. So for me, that's a big portion of, I have a lot of students that reach out from my school and saying, how can I give back there? So that's really big for me. South Asian women, so I see a lot of South Asian women who reach out, and for me, I see myself and a lot of them who are starting their careers. That's a big focus for me, and again, a passion project where I want to make sure that I'm able to give whatever I can, because I've seen a journey, I've had a journey, and I want to be able to share what I can with a lot of women that I come across.
I mean, it's so interesting because your life is busy. You don't have a lot of free time, but finding the flex.
And enough to see
yes,
those videos of the walking.
Well, enough to see the videos,
yeah.
But finding the flex to say yes and to accept, to allow people in and give them that kind of time and space is really what will ultimately propel that next generation.
Well, not always, but I try. I would just say I try.
Well, I think you do a pretty good job.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank all of you for sitting through this today and for joining us. I hope it was entertaining and informative.
Thanks.